What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Get Back Guys. We're fresh off of our predictions for the NFL, going through every single game. So now we're on to some NBA talk, some NFL talk. We just got the season opener of that last night. And then, of course, Kyle's not with us today. He's feeling a little under the weather, I think, or just tired.
He is. Not COVID. Yeah. He's got the flu. Flu season started.
So we've got Alex, of course, like every episode, and we've got
Hello.
Zach joining us again. Another guest taking Kyle's place pretty quick here.
Starting a little controversy.
And yeah. So today I think we should start it off with the NBA because we haven't talked about the bubble in forever, and there's been some pretty big news, and I'll let Alex lead this off because he's pretty hyped, I think.
Real quick before, guys, remember, follow us on the Get Back Guys podcast on Twitter or Instagram, as well as on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. NBA talk. I got the Heat hat right here. I'm not going to wear it all day because my head's kind of hurting, but Heat, baby. What I say? Heat in 5. I've been saying it all dang day. Heat in 5, and that's exactly. Actually, we got Heat in 4. Swept out them Pacers. Sweep them. Get them on out of here. Don't need you. And then the Bucks came in and couldn't do a thing. I mean, that's not true. All the games were close for the most part, but they lost, and the Heat won. The Heat are looking good. We're looking like we can compete with every team in the entire league. I get the Clippers are still really good. I get Lakers are still really good. Those are the two that I would fear more than any of the rest. I think we can take the Raptors. I think we can take the Celtics. By the way, guys, we're filming this before that game airs. We're filming this the Friday before. So we do not know the results of that, but I think we can take either team. I'm just pumped, man. The Heat look great. We've rallied around Jimmy. Jimmy has gotten hot. Talk about Tyler Hero. That man, I watched friend and guest before on the show, Caleb Keller, and I were watching. We watched game 4, which is that the one we lost? Game 4?
Yeah.
I think so. Game 4. We watched game 4 together before our fantasy football draft we did. And the entire time, Caleb kept just being like, this guy's got ice in his veins, because Hero was just knocking shots like crazy and just constantly saying how much he hates that the Celtics didn't get him. But yeah, I'm loving the Heat right now. Loving it.
Yeah, Zach, let's hear your take on it, on just Heat. And maybe let's talk about the East for a little bit. We'll get to the West in a second, but kind of what are your thoughts on the East right now?
Well, I think it's surprising. I mean, Alex obviously called it, but most of the pundits and most of the observers thought that the Bucks would keep that momentum from the regular season, and they have probably the best player in the world in Giannis. And for some reason, when they get to the playoffs, it just falls apart. Budenholzer just doesn't seem to have what it takes to be a great playoff coach. Giannis puts up decent numbers, but just doesn't seem to be the same guy in the playoffs. Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe are inconsistent or just pretty much bad in the case of Bledsoe. So I think Miami definitely deserved to win that series, but I also don't think that the Bucks were playing nearly as well during the playoffs. I mean, they even dropped that one game to Orlando, which was kind of it raised a few eyebrows when it happened. So I do think the Heat are I don't know if I'd call them the favorite, but they've looked better than any of the teams in the East so far in the playoffs. And I think it'd be a really fun series to watch them versus either Boston or Toronto. I'm picking Toronto tonight, by the way. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
But I think that the series between Toronto and Miami could definitely go to 6 or 7 games. I love both of their styles. You know, Miami's such a grinded out team with some finesse players like Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. But then you got the Raptors with that championship experience. Kyle Lowry is just, you know, he went from being the guy that we all said couldn't get it done in the playoffs to being the reason the Raptors are winning in the playoffs. So I definitely think that's going to be the series I'm looking forward to. But the Celtics are playing great ball too. You can't complain about that if they make it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was higher on the Bucks maybe than anybody that we've had on the podcast. I thought they were definitely the second best team in basketball. So I think that's a testament to how good the Heat
Get them out
played.
of
And
there.
a big thing, I think is the biggest difference I thought in the series was Spoelstra versus Budenholzer. Like Giannis didn't play 40 minutes even when, and maybe he was banged up early in the series and they weren't just kind of talking about it, but that's kind of absurd. Like, and another thing that the Bucks throughout the season, which is kind of interesting, is they were so good that they never played in close games. Like Giannis didn't play in so many fourth quarters that like them as a team, I could see it now where in a close game when Giannis, you take away, when he doesn't have a jump shot, when he can't just pull up from 15 feet and bury a shot, there becomes a lot of difficulty there. So I'm hyped about the Heat. Spoelstra again shows how good of a coach he is.
I
And
think.
you
Sorry, go ahead, Nick. I was just gonna say,
No,
I think when you really look, I said this to Caleb too when we were talking last Sunday during that game 4, that if you really look at all the coaches, who's got the most experience left that are playing in the NBA? It's Eric Spoelstra. The guy's got rings.
Yeah, that or Doc Rivers.
Sure, yeah, Doc definitely is up there too. But I Spoelstra and Doc are your only two. I mean, Spoelstra's up there. I mean, Spoelstra knows how to win. He knows how to be clutch. And Bam is a much better defender than I think people gave him credit for. And that trade has turned out to be the biggest deal because Crowder played Giannis pretty much on D the entire time and played him pretty well. I mean, Giannis is still going to be Giannis, but all things considered, played on him pretty well. I think we got the defense to do it. Need to keep the turnovers from being cuckoo because that's the biggest problem we've had in every game. In the game 5 we won. I mean, Jimmy had like 7 turnovers. I mean, the Heat had 7 turnovers in like the first quarter, and Jimmy was 4 of those. They need to wrap that up. But Spoelstra is a good enough coach to do it. I think that's the biggest reason the Heat are the surprise team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spoelstra is probably the best coach in the playoffs, and then actually Nick Nurse might be right behind him because obviously he has a championship. He just doesn't have the success over the long term, obviously, but I think those might be the 2 best coaches left. What were you saying, Zach?
D'Antoni and Doc Rivers are obviously very good coaches too, and you can't even count out the Vogel over in with the Lakers. But I was going to say I read a stat somewhere that Giannis might be the first. I think we all agree he's probably going to win MVP of the season still. He might be the first MVP who did not actually play. I think it was 38 minutes in a single game this season. He never got over that large. Like you got Kyle Lowry out here playing 40 minutes plus in the Raptors playoffs games, but Giannis has been minutes managed every game this year, and that makes a lot of sense if you look at sort of the Kawhi load management to lengthen the guys' careers, avoid injuries. But you can't do that in the playoffs. The whole point of having these guys take the load management is so that they're ready for the playoffs. And maybe it got to the point where Budenholzer realized that they're playing for next year. I mean, you're down 3-0 in a series when he got hurt, but it just I don't know what he was thinking there. And then a lot of people are saying that, Giannis is a Scottie Pippen. And I think that we're overreacting to 2 bad playoff series. One of the takes I saw that I really liked was that Giannis might be more like a Shaq who doesn't have his Kobe. He doesn't have that second guy who has ice in his veins who's going to elevate him. Or I think Wade was the MJ when it was the Shaq Wade marriage. But Giannis very well could be the MJ, but he definitely doesn't have. I think he's more like a Shaq without his Kobe, and they need to go find him a Kobe because that roster, they're going to slay it in the regular season, but I don't see them making it out of the playoffs anytime soon. The East is the weak conference, and they can't even get out of the second round. It's ridiculous.
I also don't think the East is as weak as it has been in years past. I think it's starting to get tougher.
Yeah, although I think the Rockets and Nuggets would have a fair claim to be making it to the conference finals, and they're both getting handily dealt with by the juggernauts of the West. But obviously, I think the top tier talent in the East is still pretty good with the Raptors, Celtics, and Heat, of course. Now, yeah, I think you're totally right. They need a guard. Chris Middleton's a fine player, but they need a guard who can get buckets at the end of a game and who can at least even let Giannis, if you just double team Giannis, they're not going to win games, right?
They got to space out that floor.
Yeah. And so they have the perfect other pieces around him, but you got to get rid of Eric Bledsoe and find someone else who can get a bucket late. And if they don't do that soon, then Giannis is probably going to play in another jersey here in a couple years, which is a scary thought, but exciting as well. So,
come join Jimmy and Bam.
Go to Golden State. So
yeah, I hope not. I think there's a decent chance he stays, and I hope so. Obviously, for me being a Spurs fan in the small market life, but yeah, I'm also with you. I think the Raptors will get a win. I'm so happy Kyle Lowry's playing good. He's just how can you not like Kyle Lowry? Really,
the grinder, man.
And then taking it to the West real quick with the both 3-1 leads. And I think the main story here between both of these two teams, which everyone thought that they would meet, that the Lakers and Clippers were going to meet in the Western Conference Finals, looks like that's pretty much going to happen. But I think both of these series, Game 3 is really interesting because the Nuggets and Rockets both had a chance to win that game. The Rockets were up at halftime with LeBron having one of, if not the highest scoring half he's ever had in the playoffs, and they were winning. And then they gave that game away to Rajon Rondo. And the Clippers, on the other hand, had Kawhi Leonard playing who's been incredible in the playoffs, having his worst quarter basically, and outside of the one unbelievable block, which is awesome. Yeah, one finger. But outside of that, he was terrible. He was terrible offensively in that fourth quarter, and they still couldn't get over the hump. So I think that's pretty interesting that these series could be way competitive if it felt like the Rockets and Nuggets just weren't up to the task of crunch time basketball. And so I'm pretty excited for this LA series. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Zach.
I think what's so interesting, your point there on Kawhi not playing very well is, that's offensively. But when you look at his impact, the way that Kawhi controls the floor has almost always been about his defense, right? And his offense has really evolved to match that portion of his game. But there's a reason he's the best two-way player in the NBA right now. I think you can make that argument that he's the most complete basketball player in the NBA. And even when his offense isn't really, going to that next level, his defense is going to keep the Clippers in the game. So I've been on the Clippers train all season long. I'm not getting off it now. I think the Lakers have looked pretty good in the playoffs, obviously. They've had a few rough games against some of the teams with better guards, but their center court, no one can match LeBron and AD when they're both on. I just think that when they run into the Clippers, it's going to be a really hard-fought, scrappy battle. And I think the Clippers' ceiling is higher. And so I'm erring on the side of that depth of talent because they both have two great stars. So I'm so excited. I think that's the real unless the Heat make it, of course, Alex, that's the real NBA final for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Whoever wins that's going to win the final in my eyes.
Well,
although Toronto and the Heat are pretty good too.
I mean that that series, because it's going to probably most likely end up being Clippers-Lakers fighting out for that final spot. That series will be a great series because it'll probably go close. I mean, got to go to 6-7 games. You think with the teams they got. I mean, so it makes sense that that's what you'd like better because when the Heat sweep them in the finals, whoever wins that beat-up battle, I'll just have a good time. But I think LeBron has shown that he is not slowed down and that time off has done nothing but help him. Obviously, he's had a couple of bad games, but when he needs to be good, he's great. And he's done incredible. And obviously having Anthony Davis helps. Kawhi is incredible. I want those two to meet because, I mean, if there was no bubble and the shutdown hadn't happened and they still met, I'd still really want that because, I mean, just the two of those in LA battling it out, the two LA teams. Can the Clippers overtake the Lakers as just a franchise by doing this? Can they become a dynasty with Kawhi and Paul George and win a few in a row? I mean, I don't know if they will. I think that series is going to be amazing, and I really want to watch it. But it's, I think it'll end up, it's going to, whichever of the teams win in the East are going to have a tough opponent, whether it's Clippers, Lakers. Personally, I think the Heat actually match up against those two teams better than Boston or Toronto. But you guys might have a different opinion. But I think it's going to be a good finals, and I get it. If whoever goes, if the Lakers or Clippers go, they're going to be the favorite because they got the two best players in the world on their team, and a couple of the top 5, 10 not behind them or playing next to them. So I get it. It's going to be fun, man. NBA is fun. Being the first sport back, it's been a good time in the bubble.
Yeah, what I'm excited about is that all of the series left once we get to both the conference championships are going to be awesome. They should both at least go to 6 games. And then the finals should be good. So I think we got a lot of great basketball left. It's pretty exciting with the Warriors not there. Yeah, I think is. Another interesting thing, 2 players, one from each, the Lakers and the Clippers, kind of turning things around, which is going to make them, hopefully, I'm glad that they both did because it should maximize this series. For the Lakers first is a player lesser. It's Rajon Rondo. Seeing him play terrible for 2 years, and Rondo, I have receipts from my 8th grade Twitter account that I was a Rajon Rondo fan and a Kawhi Leonard fan.
I've seen it. I can.
But
I mean, you're a Spurs fan, makes sense.
He was terrible for the last 2 years, and he was consistently the worst player on the Lakers. And to see him, he was terrible. He was a big reason they lost Game 1 to the Rockets. And to see him play playoff Rondo like we saw when the Pelicans beat the Blazers a few years ago was really cool. And I know Zach probably likes Rondo too from that Bulls series that they should have upset back in the day. That could be a pretty interesting key for fourth quarter. If Rondo's hitting shots, his poise on the court, his experience, should be pretty fun to watch late in games. And him and Alex Caruso in that kind of end game lineup has been pretty good for the Lakers. So I think that I'm excited for that. And then obviously Paul George, because I talked about it before we started. I was like, Paul George has been bad the last few years in the playoffs since 2014, basically. And the first 4 games, I mean, he had a decent game 1, but he had a 3-game stretch where he was just terrible. And so seeing him turn it around, I'm happy for him. I hope everything's good mentally with him. I hope he's, doing better on that front, and seeing him play good was huge for them. They, if Kristaps Porzingis doesn't get hurt, that series might go to 7 games. It would have been a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited about the Mavericks' future, and I'm also really excited about the Nuggets' future with Michael Porter Jr. He's, Jamal Murray was awesome in the Jazz series. He's kind of not. He's shown the inconsistency that he showed last year in the playoffs. When he's on, he has top 15, top 10 potential, but he's just never consistent enough, which bugs me. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick with the Lakers. I do still think the Lakers are the better team because I think I think the battle is really going to be between like Anthony Davis and Paul George, because we know what Kawhi is bringing to the table. And LeBron's defense in the playoffs has been unreal for his age, which has been really cool to watch, I think. And him and Kawhi are going to bring it every night. So I'm excited for that series.
Look, LeBron with age, if he wants to shut you down, he can do it. He can physically do it. LeBron is playing 5 steps ahead of everybody, and he has been for a while. When people say his defense is down, it's because LeBron doesn't want to do it. Or he knows he couldn't make it. He is always that many steps ahead. If the Heat don't win it all, which I want them to, obviously, I will root for the Lakers over Clippers just because I can't hate LeBron. He brought me 2 rings, 4 appearances. I can't hate that ever. And I will always love him for it. But the Clippers would be all right too. But yeah.
I mean, I'm just excited to see. I mean, LeBron's not quite like, he's still at the very end of his prime, and it seems like he's still in his prime, even though he's so much older. But seeing him and Kawhi get to battle in the postseason, both of them hopefully playing peak basketball, because obviously
That'll be fun.
Kawhi was a completely different player 6 years ago, just a defensive guy and, putting up 14 points a game kind of on fast breaks and loose 3-pointers. So that's going to be really cool to watch, I think. And I think you see it with the defense, Kawhi as well throughout the year, starting to sit in the corner more because he's just asked to do so much on offense, but they can both bring it when they need to. And that block, pretty iconic. Any final thoughts on NBA?
Sneaky wild card. If Boston makes it through to the next round, Gordon Hayward might be back. He's supposed to clear quarantine sometime in the next week. He's still rehabbing, but we all talked about how that was a pretty significant loss for them. He could be back for the conference finals. So if Boston makes it, I'm really hoping for Hayward to make it back, because I feel terrible about his injury history. But that's could be a huge addition for Boston's depth, giving them another playmaker. I've noticed that Jaylen Brown is just taking a ton of shots, and he's playing so well defensively, but I don't think Boston's going to be winning any championships with Jaylen Brown taking 30 shots a game. Yeah. So getting another shooter in there would be a huge boon to the Celtics offense.
Yeah, especially if he ever gets close to what he was at the end of his tenure in Utah. That team could be so good. And obviously I know Boston fans have been upset with their potential not reaching it for the last 3 years, basically. But yeah, I have Lakers winning. I think Zach has Clippers and Alex has Heat, probably / Lakers if they don't make it. So if we want to transition to football, do you guys have any last thoughts on NBA?
No, I mean, any team that really wins that's left, I'd be, I wouldn't be rolling over upset. Maybe Boston a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of Boston, but any team I'd be all right with.
Send Chris Paul to the Bucks. That's my big off-season ask. Chris Paul with Giannis. I need to see it.
That would be awesome. He would fit perfectly. It's just money-wise might be kind of difficult because Chris Paul is getting paid a lot of money. And also, I do have one more thing that I have to mention for these two boys that I'm with. I have to own up to it. In the past, I've been very harsh on Jimmy Butler. And I've come around to him. I'm a big fan of him. I have to take the take. Every once in a while we have some misses, and it was founded in, this is big for Jimmy Butler's legacy as well. This is the first series ever that he's won that's notable, right? Like, he's made it to the second round a couple times, but him beating the Bucks, like, that is showing, okay, you are one of the best players of basketball. Everyone knows he's been so good. And so I think he found a perfect fit. I think for his personality that can be so extreme, he needed to find a system that gelled with that. And I know Alex and Zach are pretty happy because I said some pretty harsh things about Jimmy Butler a couple years ago. And I need to apologize to the man because he's been nothing but awesome. And the big thing with me is, you know what? He has never made it to a conference championship. He can talk all this BS to people about how good he is, and finally he's carried a team to it, which is pretty cool to see. And I'm excited to watch the Heat more. So I have to say it on camera that I own up to some of my horrendous Jimmy Butler takes.
Welcome aboard. I may I tell a little story?
Oh no.
So we for the viewers, we have all been in fantasy football together for the last 6-7 years, going into our 8th year. Okay, so 7-8. And we have a big chat that has everybody in it, and maybe half really talk consistently. Almost daily we're talking in there, and sometimes we get in huge debates. Sometimes we're talking about, movies or television, and sometimes we're just goofing off. But we do what we call, a friend of the show, Caleb, came up with dumpster dives. We'll go through and we'll look through past stuff and search and try to scroll through to find things. And I have all the Jimmy Butler stuff. I found it the other day, and I meant to put it in our chat for a little dumpster dive. And I'll just say I don't want to spoil anything because I still want to surprise our whole chat with it all. So I don't want to give these two any ideas. But I will say in like 2018, when all the Jimmy stuff kind of happened, it was in October. And on like October 26th or something like that, some day in October, maybe a little earlier. I can't remember the date because the dates I didn't have saved. But when I looked at it, all overwhelming praise for Jimmy. It was when the first announcement came that he was starting to really get mad at Cat and Wiggins, and he was all love from everybody, including Nick, including other people who are harsh on him. 3 days later, nothing but pure trash towards Jimmy outside of Zach and I and like Justin, like one or two people, just nothing but garbage. And then the debate turned into not as necessarily Jimmy a great player, but the debate turned into pretty much
leader, right?
You talked about a good leader. There was a huge debate about how you should be a professional, if you shouldn't be, because I was all for it. I love Jimmy beating him with the bench. I love the attitude. I think that's awesome in the NBA because Cat and Wiggins have done nothing but overwhelm or underperform and have never lived up to their potential. I mean, Cat kind of, but like Cat's supposed to be an all-star elite player and he can't do anything ever. Their team's terrible. Where are they? They're not even in the bubble. Like, I'm gonna save individuals. I got about 15 pages. I do have Nick talking a little bit about how Jimmy is saying some stuff. Jimmy's now worth it if you're a top 4 team, but if you're not worth it and all this stuff. But it's I got some good ones. Well, maybe after I finally release it to everybody at once, maybe I'll post them on Twitter.
I'm trying to think back to my thought process back then, and I still think that like Cat's development as a player is obviously good that he's removed from Jimmy Butler because I think his style and how he is might never work, obviously, and he might be a bust, but getting him out of there is probably still a good thing for the Timberwolves, even if they're not going to be as good, just because I don't think they would have ever made it past a 7 seed. I think it's good for Jimmy Butler too, because Jimmy Butler can actually win.
3 seed before Butler got hurt with that 1 year that they were on there. And I think it's important to remember that, his development so far has been into a lottery team. They get the number 1 pick, right?
It's true.
When you look at Jimmy Butler, and it's what I've always said is that, if you're not going to bring it in practice, then maybe you don't deserve your max contract. And I think we've seen that played out with Wiggins time and time again. And we're starting to see it with – I like Karl-Anthony Towns as a player.
I like them both.
He's hardly an alpha. And Jimmy Butler, iron sharpens iron. And it's what I've said from the beginning is that if Jimmy Butler could destroy you with the bench, then maybe you're not as good as Jimmy Butler.
I want to point out, too, that's
what counts.
When this all happened and we got into big debates, it was because there was a big rumor or fall-through trade that the Rockets were going to send over a bunch of stuff for him. And then he ended up going. It was like 3 firsts and Chris Paul because he was there.
Imagine if the Rockets had Butler instead of Westbrook right now.
I am going to point out one thing, and I'm not going to say who in our chat for these boys said it because there was about 5 of us. You did not say this. I'll just say you didn't. And I know Zach didn't because Zach was on my side. Somebody did. There was about 6 of us debating. So you got about 3 more people to guess through. But somebody did say Jimmy just isn't a spot-up shooter. And imagine Jimmy playing with selfish guys. Jimmy is too selfish to give up the ball. And I'll say that literally in interviews, he's talked about, in this Heat series, he talks about, I will give up the ball to whoever the hot hand is. We've given it to Hero. I'll give it to Bam. Sometimes it's me. And I just want to point that out. Jimmy Butler's a scrapper. He's been a scrapper his whole career.
Yeah.
Always fought where he is. He's great.
To clarify real quick on my point about potentially the Timberwolves being better off, obviously they're a worse team and they're in lottery terribleness, but I don't think it was ever going to work out long term with Jimmy Butler there because of the organization as well. I think it's just bad in Minnesota, and I think Butler being maximized because I don't think anyone disagrees that. I mean, obviously the Raptors were better than the Bucks, but that the Sixers are a more talented team last year with Jimmy Butler than the Heat this year. But Eric Spoelstra and that culture, I think, lends itself to the type of play that Jimmy Butler has, and we've seen good players with Kobe Bryant not play up to his standards and not do it when in other circumstances they can flourish. And so, yeah, I was a little harsh on Jimmy Butler, no doubt about it. And yeah, I'm just I'm happy for him. I'm glad he's succeeding in Miami, and yeah, Minnesota's a whole dumpster fire.
Tibbs too. I think Tibbs is a big reason for
I think
Jimmy's
he's
struggles.
I think also him not. It's there has to be something said when a player goes on a rampage like that and the coach not doing anything about it, right? Like that would never happen with Eric Spoelstra.
No.
Spoelstra's
got
like it would never get to that position. If Cat was drafted to the Heat, I bet the Heat he would be a much better player. He'd have more dog in him probably because of the place he was drafted to. And we saw
Riley
that
being there helps too.
Even, I mean, I know it's a different coaching scheme, but even with Kevin Love in the Timberwolves organization, when he went to the Cavs, they struggled so much in the beginning of 2015 because Kevin Love wouldn't buy into what was going on with Cleveland and LeBron. And LeBron did some really passive-aggressive things with his tweets and everything. So, yeah, in the moment, I no doubt was pretty harsh. There's some tough takes, but it happens. That's where the fun comes in.
Segue in.
All right, so I think now let's transition into NFL because last night the season finally started, and I'm so excited about it, and I know you two are as well. And yeah, let's just get some initial thoughts on how the game was handled from production-wise, on with the fans and everything, kind of that experience, and your thoughts on the Chiefs and Texans.
I'll go first.
Yeah, you lead it off.
I wore this shirt in honor of former Eagles coach Andy Reid. He loves his Hawaiian shirts, so I tossed on a little Hawaiian shirt for those of you listening at home. I love the Chiefs. I love Andy Reid. I can't root against any team Andy Reid is coaching unless it's against the Eagles. And I mean, the game was fun. The Texans' offense looked awful, and they were dropping balls in the first drive. I mean, yeah, they scored. The score will make it look better than it was, but they really weren't that good. The Chiefs, I mean, some teams tend to jump to a quick start and then filter out. Chiefs won't do that. They looked good and they looked scary. And it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, for everybody to find grooves. But the game was fun. It was fun watching football. Clyde is a beast. They got a beast running back. I mean, that man's on one of my fantasy leagues, and he racking up points. He knows how to run. He's good. Patty looked great. COVID-wise, it all went really well. I know all the players were wearing special rings to be tracked where they were at what time and all this stuff. So if somebody does test positive, they can move them out. The fans that they had there worked. I mean, there was about 17,000, I think they said, but you could hear it. I didn't like that they booed some of them booed during the social justice part because that's racist and horrible. I loved all the stuff they did to fight for social justice. I thought it was great. I thought it went much. I was expecting something to go crazy, and nothing really did. And it was a fun game. And I enjoyed football's back, and I loved it.
I think we were all just sort of like waiting for someone to be like, just kidding, NFL's not happening. Like, yeah. I know up until the ball was actually officially kicked off, I kept waiting for just like, oh my God, the entire Chiefs offensive line tested positive, even though there's only been 5 positive cases in like a month in the NFL. So it was and the other thing that was so surprising was that without a preseason and really with such a short just build up to the offseason, it was a remarkably clean game. I think there was less than 8 penalties total for both teams combined. I think the Chiefs only had 1.
I think there was only like 4 or 5 penalties.
Yeah, it didn't look like there were really any missed calls. The one that stands out is the Texans had that obvious false start on their one touchdown pass, but that was after the game was well out of hand. So just after so many things, everyone talking about what could go wrong and the NFL's, barely going to survive. And then for it to come out business as usual. And it wasn't the best game, but who cares at this point? It was fun.
Just watching football.
The Chiefs probably should have put up over 40 points. They had that one touchdown that was perfect throw by Patrick Mahomes. That was, the safety made a good play, hitting him there in the back of the end zone. But then there was another pass that Demarcus Robinson dropped as well in the back of the end zone, although they did score on that drive. So it's crazy as it may seem, Patrick Mahomes probably could have had 4 touchdown passes. Fun fact I read today, Patrick Mahomes has, I believe he just now had the 10th game of his career with 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions, which is as many as Carson Palmer had in his entire NFL career. So
that's insane.
It's crazy.
If you were ever questioning whether or not Patrick Mahomes is pretty good at football, he's just setting new standards here. It was incredible.
Real quick, Nick, before you jump in, can I just say one more thing before I forget it? I do think the players, and the reason that players and these coaches, and there has been so little Tesla, it was like 5 out of 56,000?
64,000.
64,000 people. I mean, a lot of the high up guys are friends with the guys in the NBA, obviously, and I'm sure they've talked to them. But I think that the players and the coaches are looking around going, look, we get to be with our families. We don't have to be in a bubble. If this goes crazy, we will have to be in a bubble, and we don't want to. Let's just stay home, stay at the facility, and get the job done. It's not like I'm not seeing, it's not like I'm not having fun with friends. I'm going out, I'm hanging out with them, joking up, on the sideline during training camp and all this stuff. I think players, these are adult men, they get it. And I think they also saw what happened in baseball with the Marlins and all that stuff. And they're like, why do this? We can be young, in 6 months. Like, it's not like I'm losing a lot of my life here. We can go have a good time when this is over, and let's just buckle down and get the job done. And I think the coaches have done a good job, really pushing that as well. But sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, yeah, I think I agree everything. I think everything went way more smoothly than I thought it would. The game was, even though it was a blowout, it was still awesome to watch. And I think what's interesting is how bad are the Texans going to be, because they have 3 tough games after this. And also, if it, is the Chiefs defense just insane, or is the Texans offense either bad or just starting slow?
Probably somewhere in the middle.
I think that's going to be interesting, because the Chiefs defense looked unreal last night, obviously, until, dumpster time when it didn't matter. I thought Chiefs again are top, if not the best team, top 3.
Did they pick Watson off twice, or just that one where it was thrown poorly
just
into the air?
He got hit as he threw.
By
Tyrann Mathieu,
but
if you look at the Chiefs' defense, the strength of it has always been that pass rush, which was dominant last night.
Yeah, and that offensive line is so bad for the Texans.
Oh, Swiss cheese.
Yeah. So, I think we're all just hyped about it. Chiefs are awesome. Texans, I'm worried about them having a terrible start, but maybe it's good, because get Bill O'Brien out of there.
Get him out of there!
The Texans last night got out. I mean, they didn't really need any coaching, but they got out-coached by Andy Reid, who couldn't even see the field because of that face shield.
There's some great memes going around of what Andy Reid did.
The Iron Man.
He looked
so
great.
I'm thinking just to kind of wrap this episode up, let's each talk about first game. I know we're itching to talk about our favorite teams. So Alex, you lead it off. Let's talk about the Eagles. For what are your expectations for week 1? What are you hoping to see? And then we'll go quick, Bears and then Pack.
If we need Bill O'Brien out of there, let's bring Jimmy Butler and them Heat in, and we'll just sweep them on out of the facility. We'll just, we love doing that. Anyway, I'm excited. Rager was announced today that he was full participation again in practice, and he's looking like he is going to at least be active. I don't know if he's going to play, but be active. So I'm excited. We're going to be slow. We were awful to start the year on offense. I mean, we could heat up, and we did heat up, but I'm excited just to have the Chiefs game was a perfect tease. I think for everybody, but especially for me too, because we run such an Andy Reid system that just watching Patty play, watching that offense, it's like, this is what we kind of follow in that pattern. It's just, there's a perfect little appetizer before this meal I want, and I'm dying for the meal. Like watching Eagles football, I'm so pumped for it. I hope Rager plays. The injuries aren't looking too awful going into the game. There might be a few. Miles Sanders is still questionable, which would be a big bummer, rolling with Corey and Boston just because I as much as I love him, I really want to see Miles play. I do think we will win, as I talked about in the NFC East one, but I will think it will be a tough game, and it might end up having to be a late comeback for us. I hope we blow them out, but we'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch football all day on Sunday. Get back to
100%.
that routine of the winter and fall season. But yeah, I think the Eagles are going to be pretty good playing Washington TBDs. So
Sweet. Yeah,
we can get a win.
Yeah, I think you got a 100% win. Zach, what are your thoughts on
Don't
Bears?
say
Bears
that.
Lions.
Don't even put it out there.
One thought on the Eagle before I go on the Bears. I think that is great that Jason Peters got moved back to left tackle, because I was having some nightmares about Carson Wentz getting just destroyed by that pretty good defensive line.
Yeah,
with a whole left tackle. So
I think because I had said in our chat right away was of course they're going to move him back, but then I started hearing he's playing elite at right guard, like he was playing super well at right guard, and I just think they wanted to take their time to see what the young guys would do, and the young guys. Matt Pryor's a good player. He came in and did all right for us last year at right guard, and I think they're just saying, look, let's put him at right guard in between two Pro Bowl guys, and then let's put JP back over. Let's pay him. Lane Johnson restructured his contract to make more room, so we didn't have to spend more money that we want to roll over into next year. Lane might not play. He is questionable right now, and it's looking more likely he might not, which would be a big bummer because we want both those ends to be secured. But hopefully he ends up playing. We got to stop with these injuries, man. We got to get healthy. Get that Chip Kelly protein shakes that he was freaking out about back in the facility, because those work.
As for the Bears, I'm pretty stoked. I think Mitch Trubisky getting named the starter is the right move. I know I'm sort of in the minority there. A lot of people said Nick Foles should have won the job, but my way of thinking is it's a lot easier to go from Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles than if Nick Foles doesn't work out, trying to go back to Mitch Trubisky after you shattered his confidence. All of the reports, like you never know how much to read into these training camp reports, but everything I've read is that Mitch is playing, or at the very least operating like a different guy. He says he has his confidence back. All of his teammates, Cordell Patterson, Allen Robinson, are saying that he seems like a much more confident player and that he's in his rhythm and in his zone. Historically, he's really good against Detroit. I don't know if you've seen his numbers, but I believe it was the last 3 games against Detroit. He has like 9 touchdowns to 1 pick and has thrown for over 300 yards in every single game. So I'm excited to see what he does versus that defense. Hopefully we have David Montgomery back for the
I think
week
you
1
should.
matchup.
Yeah, he's a full go in practice.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have him on my fantasy.
He's questionable.
Yeah, I have him on my fantasy football team, so I've been keeping tabs on it, and I know he practiced fully on Thursday. He was a full go, so not even limited. So it seems like he will.
Today.
We have some defenders like Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack were both held out of most of practice. But I think that was precautionary. Matt Nagy has always been the type of guy to err on the side of caution when it comes to letting his players rest, which I like. And Jalen Johnson, the rookie corner, got named starter. So there's a lot to be excited about. Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet have apparently looked amazing at tight end. And after Trey Burton's injury experience of the past 2 years, having a reliable weapon at tight end in this offense is you saw Travis Kelce last night. This is the same offense. You look at the Eagles, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, same offense. So having 2 guys, even if Jimmy Graham isn't the old Jimmy, he's an upgrade over Trey Burton of the past 2 years. Fair. Cole Kmet, he's the real deal from everything we've read in camp. So I think our offense does take that step forward I was hoping for last year. Fingers crossed. I think people are sleeping on the Bears, but I'm obviously biased.
Yeah, and then kind of finishing the football talk up with some Packers. Health-wise, we're healthy outside of Kamal Martin getting hurt, which is a bummer. He's the only rookie who was going to play for us. Every other rookie is literally a third string, which is not what you want. But 2 things I think are actually in our favor. The one injury we do have is Billy Turner at right tackle. But Billy Turner's he's played 30 snaps or something like that, right tackle, and we signed Rick Wagner, downgrade from Brian Bulaga, but for some reason, they want Billy Turner to win the job. I think Rick Wagner is clearly the guy who should be starting. And so if Billy Turner's probably going to be out, he's doubtful. I think that's actually going to be better for the Packers offensive line because I think he's a much better right tackle than Billy Turner will be. Billy Turner, I think we're just overpaying for him for the little bit of money he's getting. He's a good personality guy. And the other big thing for the Packers that is hopeful, that a lot of people have been talking about, especially Matt LaFleur, is the second year jump in the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offense. And specifically Matt Ryan, he said throughout pretty much his entire first year in 2015 under Kyle Shanahan, he just struggled to get it. And it caused a lot of inconsistency. And you saw that with Aaron Rodgers last year in the Packers offense. They'd have 3 straight drives where they would be dominant and then they would be terrible the rest of the game. And so that's the one big kind of hopeful thing, that Aaron Rodgers in year 2, they can really hit the ground running. And so that has me excited. Obviously, again, I'm biased there. And so I hope year 2, he can, if he's more comfortable in that offense, just kind of making things happen quicker. That was an issue with the Packers offense. They would go down to 0 seconds almost every play. And so just getting moving, and it's basically the same offense. I think you're going to see a very different offense that you saw week 1 last year against the Bears. And another big thing is the Vikings are missing Danielle Hunter, who is arguably their best player, and PFF has him with the most pressures since 2018 of any edge rusher in the entire NFL. So that's huge. They have Ngakoue, who's incredible, but he's also a different kind of player than Everson Griffin, and he's going to be going up against David Bakhtiari, and they have those young corners. So I would actually think Aaron could be in for a pretty big game. Because their pass rush, obviously they're missing Hunter. Cornerbacks are really young. They're relying on 2 rookies and a second-year guy, kind of. So
I'll say this too
chance to win.
About your Packers. Rodgers on Pat McAfee's show the other day talked about how this offseason that COVID kind of forced is what him and other players have been pushing for. And he said for the first time in his career, he's not going into the first game where his arm is sore because he's had to throw so much and do all this stuff, that they've been able to rest a little more. They've been able to focus more on the body. And I think that's scary. I
hope so.
Interesting point on the Packers last year. I was reading an article on The Athletic by Mike Sando. He does a quarterback tiers ranking. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Rodgers is still rated as a tier 1 QB by most NFL prognosticators, but he broke down how many yards the Packers passing game left on the field last year, and it was over 1,200. And he was really breaking down the reasons for that, and most of it actually lies at the feet of the receiving core. And so what's going to be really just pivotal, I think Rodgers, you bring up Matt Ryan in 2015. I think Rodgers has always been at the 2016 Matt Ryan level. Mentally, he got the playbook like that, but I don't think the receivers were. And it's questionable whether or not they ever will be. And so it's like you left 1,200 yards on the field last year. If they even are half as, improved by half, leave only 600 out there, that offense takes a big leap. Nothing we've seen from those guys really tells us that they're going to make that leap on a consistent
basis. You saying that makes my heart sing. You giving Aaron Rodgers some props
makes
me so
quarterback
happy.
Now. So
what is this? This is the first time ever you guys are taking Bears and Packers, and no one else.
And I'm, he's talking up Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking about Jimmy Butler because obviously Zach's big Bulls fan, so it's pretty great. But the one sign on the Packers receiver front is MVS in the first 7 games of the year had like 470 yards, and the rest of the year after he bummed up his knee, he had like 20. So there is the idea that maybe if he's healthy, has a good camp. Aaron's been pretty high on him. That if he's healthy, he can be awesome. And PFF also had him when targeted through the first 7 weeks. Out of every receiver, he had the 7th or 8th through 6th, somewhere in there, highest quarterback completion percentage when targeted through the first 7 weeks of the year. So I'm hopeful, but every year I feel like I think about MVS and I'm like, the talent's there. And it's just him putting it together. And Alan Lazard, I think, is a good third option. But he's nothing. Like he's gonna make some big plays, but he's gonna kind of disappear in some games. I think. Obviously, I hope he's insane. But so yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how Dalvin Cook does because you're talking about the Kubiak running game. It's right there with the Shanahan running game. And last time we saw the Shanahan running game against the The Packers,
Dominant.
it was
Yeah.
it was a dumpster fire. They left the Packers in the dirt twice. So
And
we'll see how that translates.
And the Packers' run defense has been bad in camp, and that's probably a little bit on the fact that they have 3, I think, really quality running backs. Jamal Williams been awesome, I've heard, but also on they probably didn't get that much better on the run defense. But yeah, I think that's it for today's episode of the Get Back, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We're all stoked for the first week of the NFL. Hopefully all of us win. If we don't, you'll see some tears coming, and hopefully the Seahawks
next Saturday is gonna
for
be fun.
Kyle. Hopefully the Seahawks get destroyed by the Falcons because Kyle couldn't make it on the episode. And also hyped to see LeBron and Kawhi go at it this probably this next week. We'll start playing. So thanks for guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.